Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
Once home to the US's most evil criminals, Alcatraz now only opens its doors to tourists looking for a taste of the darker side of history. On August 11, 1934, 90 years ago today, Alcatraz welcomed in the first prisoners who once ran riot across America. The maximum security jail was marooned on a remote island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, and housed more than 1,500 prisoners in the 30 years it ran. Inmates only had the right to food, shelter, clothing, and medical care. Everything else was deemed a luxury, and had to be earned under the strict regime. So who were the most notorious people housed between its walls? Karpis, once officially public enemy number 1, was the leader of a gang of robbers, hijackers, and kidnappers. The group killed anyone who got in their way, including innocent bystanders, and even pulled off a train robbery in Garrettsville, fleeing with a 27,000-pound fortune. He was eventually captured and sentenced to life in prison in 1932 for 10 murders, 6 kidnappings, and a robbery. Karpis served out the longest sentence of any other prisoners at 26 years long. One former guard, Al Bloomquist, described him as a mild nuisance and said he often complained about the prison's poor conditions and fought with other inmates. He was transferred to McNeil Island Penitentiary in Washington as Alcatraz began closing down in 1962, where he died. Alphone Gabriel Capone, also known by his nickname, Scarface, was an infamous gangster and criminal mastermind. He had strong political connections, meaning he was able to evade justice for a long time, until he orchestrated the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which saw the killings of 7 members of a rival gang. His capture became a priority for newly inaugurated President Hoover, and in 1934 Al Capone was sent to Alcatraz. He experienced harsher prison life in Alcatraz after coming from Atlanta jail, where he bribed guards to bring him home comforts. 2 years into his time at Alcatraz, he was stabbed in the back by a fellow inmate, but he recovered quickly, and healed well during his incarceration. He even formed a prison band called Rock Islanders in which he played the banjo. Capone spent the last year of his sentence in a prison hospital as his health deteriorated, and he died at one of his mansions in 1947. Barnes became a bootlegger during Prohibition to avoid financial ruin. But after meeting and falling in love with fellow outlaw Catherine Thorne, he became increasingly notorious. After he attempted to kidnap and ransom oil tycoon Charles Urschel, Kelly received a life sentence, but boasted to the press he will break out in time for Christmas. The authorities took him seriously, and he was sent to Alcatraz, where he remained for 3 years. But he boasted to inmates about a range of crimes he never committed. He took a job as an altar boy in the prison chapel, with guards saying he seemed to be remorseful for what he had done. He told guard James Johnston, "My family are good people. Only I turned out to be a heel." He died on his 59th birthday in 1954. Stroud was initially jailed for the murder of a bartender, who he claimed owed money to a prostitute he was pimping. He was described as an extremely dangerous and menacing psychopath. He was a violent prisoner, eventually stabbing a guard in Leavenworth Prison, Kansas, before being placed into solitary confinement. He dedicated his alone time to studying and breeding canaries, even publishing books on the subject. However, Stroud was eventually sent to Alcatraz after he was caught using his ornithological equipment to brew alcohol. He spent 17 years there, with no birds, writing and illustrating books, and died in 1963, the same year the prison closed. Gardner committed a number of crimes throughout his life, but he became notorious after robbing a U.S. mail truck in 1920, fleeing with a substantial fortune. He escaped prison multiple times, and even managed to overpower his guards on a moving train. Gardner was sentenced to 25 years on McNeil Island, but orchestrated a successful escape, manipulating 2 other prisoners, Lawardus Bogart and Everett Impin, into joining but ultimately sacrificing themselves for him. As the 3 men made their escape during a prison baseball game, they were hit by bullets, seriously injuring Bogart and killing Impin. As Impin lay dying,